Hello everyone, my name is Pran and I'll be your MC for today. I would like to welcome everyone to the International Renewable Energy Asia Conference 2021 or RE Asia Conference. This year, the conference is coming with a theme, Clean Energy Transition for Post-COVID Resilience in ASEAN. You are now watching a session number 4
Hello
which will be
everyone.
discussed
My
about
name is
environment
Pran
and
and I'll be your
climate.
MC for
This
today.
session will
I
show
would
you
like to
about the
welcome
importance of
everyone to the
international
International
cooperation
Renewable
in
Energy Asia
addressing the
Conference
climate crisis.
2021 or RE
COP26
Asia Conference.
long-term strategy
This
in
year,
Thailand
the
and some
conference
case
is coming with
study
a
from the
theme,
private sector
Clean
to
Energy
achieve the
Transition
carbon
for
neutral
Post-COVID
commitment.
Resilience in ASEAN.
Before we
You are
start,
now watching
I
a
would like
session
to
number
inform you
4.
about the
Hello
platform.
everyone. My
about
name is Pran and
First,
I'll be your
all
MC for
microphone
this
and video
session.
of
I would
attendees
like to
is
welcome
discipline of
everyone to the
international
International
cooperation in
Renewable Energy
addressing
Asia
the
Conference
climate crisis.
2021 or RE
COP26
Asia Conference.
long-term strategy
This
in
year,
Thailand
the
and
conference
some case
is coming with
study
a
from the
theme,
private sector
Clean
to
Energy
achieve the
Transition
carbon
for
neutral
Post-COVID
commitment.
Resilience in ASEAN.
Before we go for the whole session, if you wish to ask any questions to our speakers, please leave your question at the Q&A box at the bottom right corner. Second, in case of a technical issue or you hope to contact our staff, please send your request on the Help tab at the same location. At last, after the session ends, please give us some feedback by complete the survey at the survey icon on the screen. Without any further delay, I would like to introduce the moderator of this session. So this session will be conducted by two moderators. The first one is Mr. Toru Tirei, First Secretary and alternate permanent representative of Japan to ESCAP, Embassy of Japan in Thailand. And the second one is Dr. Savitri Kariwet from Environmental Divisions, the Joint Graduate School of Energy and Environment or JGC, King Mongkut's University of Technology, Thonburi. May I now pass the floor to the moderator. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Welcome to session 4 entitled Environment and Climate Change. This session is co-chaired by Kun Savitri from King Mongkut University of Technology, Chonburi, and me. First of all, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Toru Terai from the Embassy of Japan in Thailand. My background is environment, and I am mainly in charge of environmental issues in Thailand. Then, Savitri Sensei, could you please introduce yourself? Savitri Sensei, you are muted.
สวัสดีค่ะ and distinguished participants. My name is Savitri Kariwet, and I'm currently the chairperson of the Environment Division of JGSEE at King Mongkut's University of Technology, Thonburi. My field expertise is more related to air pollution. It is atmospheric chemistry and environmental physics. And my focus in research is on emission inventory and mitigation options. Thank you very much, Kuntoruka.
Thank you, Savitri Sensei. Then I would like to move on. As you can see from the title of this session, we will focus on environment and climate change issues. Today, we have 5 presentations from 5 presenters, followed by a short panel discussion. The maximum time of each presentation is 25 minutes, including about 5 minutes of Q&A. If you have a question about the presentation, please put in that in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We will synthesize all the questions and ask them to the presenter within the time limitation. Please understand in advance that since the time is limited, we cannot pick up all the questions one by one. Then I'd like to go forward. First presenter, Mr. Moody from the United Kingdom. He leads the UK government climate change and low carbon energy work in the ASEAN region. He is responsible for all of government strategy to mobilize the UK's policy, development programming, and commercial tools to deliver a successful COP26. Prior to coming to this region, he spent nearly 4 years overseeing the UK's £50 million portfolio of prosperity fund programs in Southern Africa. His career includes public policy on the UK's overseas territories, education, justice, and policy accountability. As all of us know, one of the biggest and most important international conference, COP26, will be held soon in the UK. This is the first conference of the parties after the pandemic of COVID-19, and it is important for achieving Building Back Better. One of the main goals of this COP26 is making the world more ambitious in order to secure global net zero by mid-century and keep a limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature increase. In this regard, we thought that having Tom in today's session will be very beneficial for all of us. Tom, you have the floor.
Kun Savitri, thank you. And to your fellow speakers, audience members, thank you for having me today. I think there is a presentation which should come up shortly on the screen. I can't see it at the moment, but perhaps colleagues could put it up now. Thank you. So it's really fantastic to be here with you today to talk about the work we're doing in the UK's COP26 presidency to lead and support global efforts on this really important agenda. So could you go to the next slide, please? So I think what I'm trying to show you here is it's a really important time. So in 17 days, over 120 global leaders will come to Glasgow in Scotland in the United Kingdom and seized of the importance of the moment. And you can see on the screen there some key quotes from key people. But I think the key things to draw out are the Independent Panel on Climate Change report and other scientific evidence really makes clear that this is the crucial decade for taking action to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And there is a long lead time for these decisions, so it is easy to brush them off as in the future. But as an example, the UK's announcement last week that we would decarbonise our energy by 2035, joining the US and Canada, involves decisions about infrastructure being made, we think, in the next 6 to 9 months. So we need to really grip that sort of speed of delivery. Why is that important for this region? Well, Indonesia is the 5th biggest emitter in the region, in the world, and ASEAN as a whole has been on a very carbon intensive growth path for the last decade. Thailand is the 2nd biggest emitter in the region with 17% of the total greenhouse gas emissions for ASEAN. And it is also a very vulnerable region. So 4 of the top 10 risk affected countries in the world, climate risk affected countries in the world, are in this region. So there's substantial effort that's needed here on adaptation and resilience as well, particularly in the Mekong region. And of course, it is abundant in glorious nature. And that is a really important part of our efforts to mitigate and adapt to climate change. It contains significant value in terms of tropical forests, mangrove and other carbon sinks. And the preservation of those carbon sinks will come with enormous biodiversity co-benefits as well. It's a big biodiversity hotspot. Next slide, please. So what you can see here are the UK presidency's priorities for COP26. It's a key moment. As you said, Toru, it's the first conference of the parties since the pandemic, but more importantly, I think it's the first big COP of the 5-year ratchet cycles since the Paris Agreement. And it's already been postponed, as I'll come on to later. So it's 6 years since the Paris Agreement, with the urgency of taking action that I've just talked about on the previous slide. So we are not only focused on the core negotiations, which are intrinsic to UNFCCC COPs, but we're also trying to bring that home through commitments, policy commitments in several areas which we think and our partners think are crucial to keeping the world on a 1.5 degree future. And that is, as the science says, really important to avoid the worst effects of climate change. And we're already seeing effects now at 1 degree above pre-industrial averages. So the first of those priorities on the right there is mitigation. Let me just talk to you a little bit about what goes underneath those icons there. So by mitigation, what we're looking for is commitments by all countries to reaching net zero by about mid-century or earlier. The earlier, the better. And that means peaking emissions this decade. And really crucially, that means really a much faster energy decarbonisation. And what we really want to see at this COP is consigning coal to history. There is no place for coal anymore, and that is one of the dirtiest forms of fossil fuel. And there's been a fantastic flurry in the last 12 months of commitments to reaching net zero. So in this region, Malaysia very recently, Laos, PDR, and Indonesia have all made clear date commitments. Singapore has said it will reach net zero as soon as viable in the second half of the century. And we really hope that Thailand comes to COP26 and joins that club too. In the shorter term, though, we need to make sure that those longer term goals are combined with firm plans to bring them into action. And that's something called nationally determined contributions. We want to see countries come with new, more ambitious NDCs before COP or to COP. And they need to have within them collectively a plan to reduce emissions by about 45% by the end of this decade, by 2030. And that's based on 2010 levels. That is crucial for keeping 1.5 degree alive, which is a core underlying commitment that we're working towards for COP26. On our current trajectory, we're towards the sort of 2.4 degree mark. So we need to work more on that. There were some fantastic G7 commitments in June under the UK's presidency of the G7, which collectively committed to 50%. Each G7 member committed to that. So now in 2 weeks' time, the G20 is the really vital final point before COP26. And that has some of the biggest emitters in the developing world within it. So particularly countries like China and India, which we hope will come to COP26 with new nationally determined contributions. If they all come forward with good, ambitious NDCs, we think analysis suggests that that will get us to about 1.7 degrees, which is in touching distance of 1.5 degrees. I talked earlier about consigning coal to history. That's a critical part of our measure of success for COP26. And we really welcome the commitment by President Xi Jinping in New York a few weeks ago that China will end its overseas financing of new coal. That, combined with announcements this year by Japan and others, have really removed some of the final financial incentives of going for coal. In this region, that should mean the end of plans for 18 coal plants in Indonesia, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. That's 17 gigawatts of plans. The next priority on the side there is adaptation. And I talked about the vulnerability of this region. So what we're looking for at COP26 is for developed countries to indicate their plans involve spending about 50% of their climate finance on this really important area, not all or too heavily focused on mitigation, but also on adaptation. And we want countries to communicate very clearly how they're going to be making investments in adaptation. The need for that couldn't be clearer, as I've said, in this region, where there are some jurisdictions where insurance penetration is as low as 1%. The World Bank recently suggested that in the last decade, globally, there's been $3.5 trillion in climate-related financial losses. So that really points to that sort of challenge. And that leads neatly on to the third priority on there, which is finance. And our central goal in the COP26 presidency is achieving the $100 billion target of public and private finance from the developed world to the developing world to support their mitigation and adaptation to climate impact and challenges. And to be frank, we've fallen short collectively of that commitment. We're about 20% short in the last year of measuring that. So that's a really key issue of trust that we are putting at the center of our presidency in addressing that before we get to COP. So we're really delighted to see doubling of US contributions, and that's now at about nearly $12 billion a year. And we set up, under our presidency, we've appointed Germany and Canada to lead a climate finance task force, recognizing the importance of that issue to be resolved before we get to COP26, to ensure that we can have that trust in the room for a successful outcome. And of course, in the negotiations themselves, there is a key element of the Paris rulebook that remains to be completed, something called Article 6, which defines the rules around international trading of carbon credits. And that will also, in turn, underpin the flows of finance between different countries that will be crucial for this priority. And finally, we have a collaboration priority. I talked earlier about COP26 being postponed for a year. That was because we wanted it to be as inclusive and safe as possible. It's vital that all countries participate on an equal footing and with equal access. And that's why the UK presidency has also been funding vaccines for all delegates to come to COP26 should they need them. It's a global effort. It's a multilateral process which the UK carries with great gravity and humility, alongside our presidency of the G7 and our permanent seat on the UN Security Council. It's our absolute top priority. This year we carried out something called an integrated review of our foreign, security, defence and policy. So that would put climate change and biodiversity at the absolute top levels and prioritise that for the next decade. But it's not just for governments. In a highly globalised economy such as today's, there's an important role for business too. And that's why we've been pushing the UNFCCC's Race to Zero, which is the initiative to allow the non-state actors in the private sector to show how they are committing to reaching net zero. So for example, the Race to Zero around the financial sector, Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, now has over $70 trillion worth of assets on a clear net zero mandate. And why are we so focused on commitments when previous COPs have put the negotiations so much more forefront? Well, the first is that we need real world action, and we need it fast. As I said in my last point, the whole of economy action to secure the progress we need. The second is that as a region, and as the world starts to emerge from the pandemic, we're going to be starting to make significant spending choices to stimulate our economies to recover. So it's crucial that we use that economic effect of building back to build back better, as you said, Toru. So there's a choice either to secure the 1.5 degree future with that spending and bring it closer towards us, or to let it slip through our grasp. And this is probably the biggest opportunity in a generation to secure that future. So it's vital we make the right choice for the planet, and it's also a unique economic alignment too. Let me show you why, if we can move to the next slide. And this graph shows you in 3 simple graphics why over the last decade or so, we've reached a position now where it's no longer a binary choice between economic growth, and the planet on the other hand. Illustratively, in the United Kingdom, we've seen our emissions fall by 43% since 1990, at the same time as our GDP has grown by nearly 75%. So that decoupling is not just hypothetical, it's real and it's possible, as we've shown. On the left, you can see graphically that solar photovoltaic is, as the International Energy Agency said this year, now the cheapest source of energy in history. It's fallen 80% in the last decade, and it buys you about 5% as many kilowatts as it did 10 years ago. Offshore wind has fallen 26%, and storage has fallen about 40%. On the right, you can see how that compares with coal, which, as I said, is one of the dirtiest forms of fossil fuels, and we need to be phasing out, as we've said. So in all 10 countries in ASEAN, the new utility scale solar is cheaper than new coal when you strip away additional costs like taxpayer subsidies. So the important thing to look at on that chart is the red line, the global average, where you can see that solar and offshore wind is now below that for new coal. And by 2030, IRENA says, the International Renewable Energy Agency says that new solar will be cheaper than existing coal, which is a key point about why we're saying to countries in Southeast Asia that choosing to build new coal now is effectively stranding future assets. It's a really bad economic choice. And finally, at the bottom there is a really key final point about the wider economic benefits from investment in clean technology, in renewables or in energy efficiency. And you can see there quite clearly how many more jobs it creates by investing in those choices rather than fossil fuels. So it's clear that it's a unique moment in which we can make the choices that benefit not just the people and its climate and our well-being, health and security of our people, but also our prosperity. So we can have both. And I wanted to end on that positive and optimistic note that we're passing a tipping point now, after which progress will be exponential and economically reinforced, we hope. Final slide, please. So let me conclude by giving you a quick glimpse of our UK Presidency Program for COP26 in 17 days, as I said. You can see it online as well, and you can see it's a busy 2 weeks, kicking off with world leaders coming together, which our Prime Minister is chairing. And we're really looking forward to it and putting all our weight behind it and the UK's legacy of a really crucial COP. And we're doing that also in this region as the newest dialogue partner of ASEAN. So I'm delighted to have been here with you today, and I look forward to hearing your questions later. Thanks. Back to you, Toru.
Thank you very much, Tom. So I think now some participants may be putting some questions, but since we started a little bit late and we are a little bit running out of time, so while waiting for the questions, we would like to go to the next presentation. And if we have some questions, we will ask you in the general Q&A session. Thank you very much, Tom. Okay, so the next speaker is Miss Yui Matsumoto, an expert from Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA. She is currently serving the project entitled Project for Strengthening Institutional Capacity for the Implementation of Bangkok Master Plan on Climate Change 2013 to 2023 at the Metropolitan Bangkok Administration as an expert. She has been working in various international cooperation programs in mainly Asia and Africa, covering climate change, public health, and education. Right before the current project, she has served a project for planning and implementation of nationally appropriate mitigation actions, NAMA, in Vietnam. Today, she will introduce national and city-level climate change policies and plans in Thailand. Yui, you have the floor.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Yui Matsumoto, working for a climate change policy development project of Japan International Cooperation Agency. The project name is Project for Strengthening Institutional Capacity for the Implementation of Bangkok Master Plan on Climate Change. A little bit long. Thank you very much for inviting me to join this session today. So I would like to talk about the national and the city level climate change policies and the plans in Thailand. So I'd like to share the presentations now. And yes. Yeah. Okay. So this is the basic information on climate change impact in Thailand. In mitigation domain, the GHG emission from Thailand has gradually increased about 1.5 times during the period between 2000 and 2016. In 2016, the GHG emission reached at 354 million tons CO2 equivalent, and more than 70% of the emission is covered by the energy sector, including transportation sector. This is the major topic of this conference, I think. Then the other sector, followed by agriculture sector, 14%, and industry process, 8.9%, etc. So in adaptation domain, based on several researches, it is likely that the precipitation increase and the temperature rise would occur in Thailand, and that would lead to flood and drought. According to Global Climate Risk Index, Thailand is ranked as 8th most affected to the impact of climate change for the period between 1999 and 2018, showing its high vulnerability. And historically, Thailand and the Bangkok metropolitan region has also faced a flood, drought, and epidemic and extreme temperature that cause serious damage to citizens' lives and economies. So the table below shows the impact of these hazard in Thailand and the Bangkok, such as the huge number of affected population and also the economic losses. So coming back to the main topic of policies, then Thailand has played an important role as a non-annexed one party to the United Nations framework, UNFCCC, since ratifying that in 1994. Then Thailand has also shown its commitment on GHG reduction by implementing NAMA project and submitting the NDCs, nationally determined contributions, in 2015 and 2020. And the Thailand NDC targets 20% to 25% GHG emission reduction from its BAU. It varies because it's conditional. If it could have the support internationally, then the target will rise to 25%. Thailand has also developed the domestic institutional regimen on climate change policies and plan. Going to the next slide. Then, well, it's basically separated into 3 parts. So Thailand shown its international commitments, such as ratifying the UNFCCC, Paris Agreement, submission of NDC. Meanwhile, it was important for Thailand to develop the climate change policy and plans. 20-year national strategy is the core policy of the whole Thailand government. And in terms of legal hierarchy, it is placed as the first level policy. So the rest of the green boxes are all like a second level policies. In these plans of first level and the second levels, one of the target topics are green growth or sustainable development, but not particularly focusing on climate change. So then the Thailand also focus on climate change, particularly, and its detailed topics such as mitigation, adaptation, networking, and public awareness. So like a climate change master plan here was made at the 3rd level policy. So under the master plan, there's an umbrella strategy and plans, which is NDC roadmap, NDC action plan on mitigation sectors, and national adaptation plans. However, climate change issues involve diverse actors and its collaboration. The Climate Change Act here was sent to the cabinet to create and improve the implementation system. So this law was placed in the 2nd level policy. So we could see how Thailand is serious about the topic. So it seems this Climate Change Act might be issued within this year or early next year. So this is also explain the different layer of the legal hierarchy, which is first level plan, second level plan, third level plan. So this is their serving as a core environmental policies to show the government's direction. Then this is an example of the mitigation measures of NDC. The energy and the transport sector are the huge emitter among the sectors. So this aims to reduce 113 million tons CO2 equivalent, which is converted to 20.4% of reduction. And the main measures of these sectors are promoting energy efficiency in households and industrial process and commercial buildings and power generation, promoting the biofuel, EV, and public transportation, and also promoting renewable energies. So the approach to achieve the NDC target is stated in the policy such as NDC sectoral action plan here. So then before moving to the climate change policies in Bangkok, let me explain the reason of why we focus on the city level GHG emission reduction. So these graphs are comparing of the portion of cities GHG emissions occupied in the country's emission. So in the case of Japan, the portion of the emissions from major cities like Tokyo and Yokohama that covers little amount in the total emission in Japan. Meanwhile, the situation in Thailand is a little bit different from Japan. Bangkok's share of the GHG emission is 12% of the Thailand's emission. Therefore, GHG emission reduction in Bangkok level will directly contribute to the Thailand emission reduction. And to achieve the emission reduction, collaboration between the Thailand national government and the local governments in Bangkok will be very important. So this is the history of climate change efforts in Bangkok. So the administration body in Bangkok, we call it BMA, Bangkok Metropolitan Administration. So BMA has been collaborating with Japan International Cooperation Agency to develop the climate change related plan after they made their own effort. And we start to collaborate. Then BMA also signed MOU with the city of Yokohama and collaborate for city-to-city knowledge sharing. And BMA has issued the Bangkok Master Plan on Climate Change 2013 to 2023 to promote further action on climate change measures and evaluate already here the progress in 2020 as a comprehensive review. So later on, the national government level issued the climate change master plan, which is mentioned before, and the post-2020 implementation system of NDC and global stock taking was established. Therefore, BMA has decided to renew the master plan for the time frame also updated to 2021 to 2030 to upgrade the content and upgrade also the time frame, which is consistent with the national level. So furthermore, the core policy of the BMA, we call it Bangkok 20-year development plan. This is also currently under revision to include more concept on resilience to the climate change impact, energy efficiency, and the low carbon society. So I'm personally expecting the high level of BMA will approve this draft development plan as soon as possible. So this is the content of the current master plan on climate change in Bangkok. This shows the target of the 13.57% reduction from BAU. It's accumulation of 5 sectors, which are energy, transport, waste and wastewater, green urban, and adaptation has another targets. So this graph showing only for the mitigation sectors. BAU emission was calculated from each sector's annual data and estimated for the trend until 2020. Then this is the new master plan, which is currently drafted. So this also shows the target of the new master plan, which is 19% of the GHG emission from BAU by 2030. Furthermore, this new master plan has included the visions of BMA for the net zero emission toward 2050. And this way clearly shows the BMA's initiative and direction on aiming net zero emission. Then this is also the detailed measures, the example of measures of energy sectors in the Bangkok Master Plan on Climate Change. So to achieve the measures, BMA created this small project and estimated the potential of GHG reduction. This project in the Master Plan on Climate Change, they're also to be evaluated in the Bangkok 20-year development plan, which I already mentioned before, to pursue the BMA's goal. So these are the climate change relevant policy and plan, both national and city levels. Then to achieve the mitigation and adaptation measures of the country, I believe there will be at least two important points. So firstly, collaboration and networking with diverse actors is very important. If we understand well about the interests of each stakeholders, the relation will be more win-win situation to speed up the project. For example, as mentioned in this figure, the collaboration could be between national governments, or between public and private sectors, or city to city, or between domestic and international organizations. So the second point is legislative actions. So climate change is relevant to diverse sectors and actors, so it would be very important to specify who takes the responsibility of what in planning or implementing or raising awareness. So especially for the local government, the national level policies and strategy are so much referred when making their own local policies. So I also feel the necessity of the national government driving the issue of energy efficiency and renewable energy promotion. I also heard currently the government is planning to revise energy-related law. So I'm expecting a lot to have the upstream level direction. Then finally, I also expect the action of governments toward the net zero emission, both national and the local government level. So it might not be only related to energy domain. Maybe we also need to structure, like a restructuring the society or the way of life. Then I'm very happy to take part of these important issues, even in a small scale, but I would like to continue to work with BMA. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Yui. Sorry. Thank you, Sam, very much for your great presentation. Okay, so we have some time, but at this moment we haven't received questions for Miss Yui, but I guess people are now writing them in the Q&A box. So if people don't mind, to save our time, we go forward, and if we get some questions to Ms. Yui, we will ask them in the general Q&A sessions after all the presentations. Okay. Thank you. Thank you again, Yui. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So then I would like to introduce the next speaker, Ms. Uga. Ms. Maiko Uga is a section chief in the Office of Market Mechanisms, Ministry of the Environment, Japan. She has been working in the area of climate change, pollution control, and international cooperation in the government and NGO. Prior to joining the ministry, she worked at the Global Environmental Center Foundation, and she was involved in the wide spectrum of projects covering renewable energy and energy efficiency, mostly in the ASEAN region. Now she plays an active role in the Joint Crediting Mechanism, JCM, which is an international carbon market program by the Japanese government and the 17 partner countries, which support project development and managing monitoring and evaluation process. Today, she will give an introduction on JCM. Michael, please take the floor.
Thank you for your introduction. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly.
Okay, thank you so much for your introduction and also everyone for joining this webinar. And I'm Maiko Uga from the Ministry of the Environment, Japan. And today, I first would like to touch upon ASEAN cooperation with Japan, and then talk about more about the cooperation on climate change mitigation. So hopefully today's presentation will show you business opportunities in climate change mitigation projects in the region and beyond. And if you have any question, you can ask me during this webinar, or please let me know after this. And so first, I would like to briefly talk about Japan's cooperation in the ASEAN region. So Japan and the ASEAN countries have been a very important partner in various fields, including environmental issues, and has implemented various cooperation over the years. For example, in 2017, the ASEAN-Japan Environment Cooperation Initiative was launched to achieve Sustainable Development Goals. And based on this initiative, the program have been carried out in various sectors such as waste management, sustainable cities, biodiversity, and climate change, etc. And new cooperation are also under discussion, and has been a very exciting year, even though COVID is very affecting us physically. But today, I would like to focus on the cooperation on climate change, particularly mitigation sector. So, and before moving into more detail about the climate change mitigation, I would like to share this slide. So the ASEAN-Japan Climate Change Action Agenda was launched in 2018, and to strengthen the regional cooperation on climate change. So to enhance co-innovation by utilizing low or decarbonizing resilient technology with the partner countries. So for example, we provide support for even private sector to how to account the GHG emissions, and also we support city-to-city collaboration, which involve the city in ASEAN region and Japan, and also provide financial support for actual projects. And we also have a cooperation adaptation side, and This we have been active in Thailand and Indonesia. And I also like to introduce this very important initiative by our ministry. It's an environmental infrastructure promotion strategy. And our ministry actively promotes more environmentally friendly technology or infrastructure in partner countries. And we very much would like to cooperate not only the public sector, but welcome the involvement of the private companies to actually implement a project and see the impact, actual impact on the ground. So, for example, we have a waste to energy plant actually implemented in Myanmar, and also have various activities in energy sector and water management, and also air pollution. So with this strategy, we are active in various areas to promote the technology to leapfrog the economy transform. So that was a bit of introduction. So now I would like to introduce about the Japan's GHG Mission and Target. And so last October, we have pledged net zero emission by 2050 compared to 2013 level, which was big change from the previous target. And also this March, we also set our new target for 2013, which is 46% emission reduction compared to 2013 level. So as you see this graph, so to reach net zero by 2050, we really need to accelerate our action, particularly for the next decade, to make the 1.5 degree reachable. So with this national policy, we also trying to raise the target for the mitigation in the international cooperation area. And today I particularly want to introduce about this joint crediting mechanism. This is a bilateral cooperation between partner countries and Japan. And this diagram summarizes the basic concept of the JCM. But so basically, we established a partnership with Japan and the partner country. It was under this partnership, we promote the diffusion of leading decarbonizing technology, or etc., and also promote the implementation of mitigation actions, and also contribute to the sustainable development of partner countries. So with this partnership, we also try to calculate the GHG emission reduction or removal in a quantitative manner, and actually make this make it a carbon credit and share among the stakeholders. And so this involved the project, which is actually implemented the private sector, and that's why it's a today I think it like to share how this mechanism work and how you can involve in this cooperation. And so we're still waiting for the final decision by the cabinet, but we hope to reduce 100 million tons of CO2 by 2030 with this program. So far, we started this program back in 2013, but now we have 70 partner countries, mostly Asian countries, and in ASEAN region, except Singapore and Brunei, we already have established a partnership, and we already have the about 20 project in the pipeline, and actually about 90,000 carbon credits have been issued from 38 projects, and a lot of projects are from the region. And we already have some tool to calculate how to count those GHG emission reductions. And all the information are available on this website, but hopefully you see the picture from actual project, and these are our flagship project in Indonesia, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. And we support various renewable or energy efficiency projects, and yeah, very much eager to support new technology need to achieve the decarbonization of the economy. So, but we also provide a financial support under this program. So because usually those conventional or the technology available in the market are, well, they are maybe they reduce more GHG emissions, but they are more expensive. So that's why Japanese government also provide us financial support for projects, and so you can reduce the cost and reduce more GHGs, and at the end we'll share the carbon credit among the contributor for the project. And we also we have several actually sub-program under this financing program, and you can do the renewable or energy efficiency project, or even you can access by implementing F-gas recovery and destruction project. And we also have a trust fund in Asian Development Bank. So the Sovereign project can be also implemented with the JCM. So this is the overall picture, but I'd like to introduce the funding. This is the largest fund for under the JCM. It's called the JCM Model Project. And with this funding, you have to create an international consortium with Japanese partners and those company in the country. But with this consortium, you implement, and you can access the financial support from our ministry. And so if you are interested in this financial support, you could find more information on the website. Please just search JCM Model Project. But if, and yeah, you can find more details in English. And also, this year we started a new initiative to promote the hydrogen project. We recently announced the selection of one project, and which we've support the hydrogen production in Australia, and then hopefully that hydrogen will transport it to other countries in ASEAN, and then use as a fuel. And so we can achieve the zero emission from maybe in the factory, or, and so this is a new initiative. and hopefully we can continue this kind of program, and more companies are interested in this cutting edge project. So this is a map of the whole project we have supported by the ministry. So these are tiny letters, so I'm not going to go into detail, but these project information is also available on the website. And maybe you're wondering, maybe you need a partner or a technology provider. And we have established this business matching site, and you can find business partner or consultant or financier to support or consult your project. And yeah, just go to this website and you'll see all the information there. And that's all about the joint crediting mechanism. But the last not least, we're actually trying to expand this program, such as creating the rules with other mechanism, or trying to diversify our funds so to have a bigger project. And yeah, there are a lot of things going on and cannot share today. But if you're interested in, just please ask me. And that's all from my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike-san. Okay, thank you very much. I think today we have a lot of participants from private sector in ASEAN region, and I also think that many people may have interest in JCM Model Project, and I hope that you will some contact from them. I think you had your email address or your contact information in your slide.
Sorry, I forgot to type my email. So maybe, can I put my address in the chat box, and so anyone can see it? Or well, I can share the group address for the JCM or the website information.
If you don't mind, after this event, we would like to circulate the presentation materials, if you don't mind our doing so. Until that time, please put your email address or contact information in your slide so that it will be distributed to them.
Okay, yeah, I'll share my slide later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So for her presentations, as well as the previous presentations, we haven't got questions at this moment, but actually we got some questions for the previous speakers, so we will introduce them later. And since I don't have questions for Ms. Uga, Michael, we would like to go to the next presentations. Okay, Sabitori Sensei, over to you.
Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Suti Sharma, and he is currently working with the UN Environment Program, or UNEP. He is responsible for overseeing UNEP Global Environment Facility, or GEF, and Green Climate Fund, or GCF. Portfolio in Asia and the Pacific, as well as facilitate UNEP's climate change mitigation work in the Asia Pacific. He has been with the UN for over 15 years, of which he were 6 were with the Secretariat of the United Nations Framework Convention, Climate Change, or UNFCCC. His expertise is in policy and regulatory work on climate mitigation, carbon markets, and greenhouse gas inventories. Today, his talk will be on air pollution and climate change, two sides of the same coin. Please welcome Dr. Sudhir Sharma.
Thank you, Dr. Savitri. I hope my presentation is visible.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Toru-san. It's a pleasure for UNEP to be invited to this very important meeting leading up to COP26 today.
However, Dr. Sudhir, I think you have to share your screen by duplicating your screen, because for the moment we can see it in the not really in the slideshow mode.
Oh, okay. Let me try and see if I, because on my screen I see it on a slideshow mode. Is it working now? No.
On the screen, actually, we can see two slides together. Your first slide and the next slide.
Okay, that's a bit strange. Let me just start the share again, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the meanwhile, while I'm trying to do that, let me. Okay. Is it visible now?
It's still the same.
Okay. I am not sure why it is creating that problem. Wait a minute. No. No, I'm not very sure. Really, my apologies for this.
So I'd like to suggest
Yeah.
stop presentation mode and go to the normal mode. And
does it work now better?
no,
Still not?
no. So quit the slideshow mode and go back to the normal mode.
Okay, let us see.
Could you go to the display setting on when you share on your computer when you would make it a slideshow?
I know, I'm really surprised actually why. Is it visible now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my apologies to everyone. I guess I'm still learning after 1.5 years of COVID, getting used to the Zoom. Thank you once again for inviting UNEP to share their experience and their assessments, which have been carried out in both the fields, looking at air pollution and climate change and their linkages. So today what I'm going to be talking about is how exactly does addressing one address the other, and what are the key areas where actually by addressing air pollution we could in fact strengthen also what Tom mentioned earlier in the morning, strengthening our NDCs. Let me start with a bit of bad news, I guess, just to kind of alert us to where we are. Tom already mentioned that the IPCC has declared code red. UNFCCC followed up with an assessment report of all the NDCs which have been submitted. Now, these NDCs include the updates which have been submitted. These are updates which cover 59% of the parties, represents 49% of the global GHG emissions. So there's still a large number of countries which have not submitted their updates, especially some of the big emitting countries. So despite the update so far, countries strengthening their GHG emissions, as you can see from the graph, we are very far away, not only from the 1.5 degree pathway, but actually from even the 2 degree pathway. The assessment of UNFCCC is that if we make all these efforts, which the NDCs have included from all the 191 parties, this would actually lead to an increase in emissions of 16% above the 2010 level by 2030. Whereas, as Tom mentioned earlier in the session, what we are looking at is 45% reduction below 2010 to be able to be on a 1.5 degree pathways. So there is a lot of effort still to be brought in and to be put in place for us to be able to minimize the damages that we foresee coming if the climate change is, it becomes a runaway train. Now, along with that, so we're focusing on climate change, but then climate change is not the only challenge that we have. And at UNEP, the new MTS, the midterm strategy that we have followed, we talk about 3 planetary challenges which need to be addressed in the same thread or integratedly. So there's the climate change, there's the pollution, and there's the degradation of ecosystems. And one can't see these 3 systems independently. They positively reinforce each other if one takes positive actions, and it also negatively compounds the impacts if these 3 areas are not addressed. Now, focusing on the air pollution, you can see here the analysis which is presented that Southeast Asia is in a significantly red zone, most of it. The concentration of PM205, this is 2.5 only, is in most parts above 60 micrograms per meter cube. So it's a very high level of concentration, way above the WHO prescribed norms. And the point is not just that the concentrations of air pollution are higher. I don't want to repeat, but we all know. This also means that the health impacts of this air pollution are quite significant. So we have 92% or about 4 billion people which are exposed to this air quality, and I'm talking about globally. It's the same kind of a figure if one looks at ASEAN region. A very high percentage of population is exposed to air pollution. Globally, about 4 million premature deaths are accounted for because of air pollution. So that's a lot of wealth lost, one would say, in terms of what could have been future ideas, thoughts, and contribution to an economic growth. So from that perspective, it is as big a challenge as climate change. And the point is that this actually challenges now. It's not about in 10 years, it's not about we need to get to net zero by 2050 mid-century. We are facing the consequences and economic losses, social losses because of it now today. So that's why it kind of is even a more important issue to address. Now, just to turn around and basically, since the issue is to see how climate change and air pollution intersect, what we have done here is took out the analysis of the GHG emissions inventory which countries have submitted to UNFCCC. This is the latest information, 216 from the DURs that we took from the country report. So it's an officially reported data, no estimates here. Now, the point which I wanted to highlight, if you look at the GHG emissions, you would see that actually energy sector, and I think somebody else in the earlier presentation mentioned, across ASEAN makes about 70% of the GHG emissions. Then if you look at the second part, which basically is the agriculture sector, and a significant part of the agriculture sector is also related to crop burning. Now, within energy sector, if you see the major share of emissions actually come from energy industry, that is conversion of primary form of energy into final form of energy, power generation being one of the major parts of it. But interestingly, the second largest part is from transport sector. So that's the energy sector scenario. But if you look at effluent sector, and as I was mentioning, in these parts of the world, biomass burning and forest land is a very significant share of air pollutant. Now, the reason I'm highlighting these sources of emission is that if you look at the air pollution inventory, and if you look at where the loading on air pollution comes from, it has an exact one-to-one match with where our GHG emissions are coming from. So essentially, it is, as the title says, is, two sides of the same coin, is because the activities which contribute to GHG emissions are also the activities which are contributing to air pollution. Now, UNEP carried out a study which is called Air Pollution Measures in Asia and Pacific, published in 2019. Now, as part of that, what the work did was it looked at what are the measures which are being taken as to address air pollution, what are the next step measures which could be brought in, and then it looked at some of the measures which can actually address both climate change as well as improve the air quality. Now, in this respect, if you see, the first set of measures, these again cover the same set of sectors. So it covers the energy generation, it covers transport sector, it covers waste sector, and then we talk about some of the other areas, but that's again related to energy consumption. I would not go into the details of those, but the reason I'm presenting this is essentially we mapped it to understand where things could be done and actually what is the overlap with the GHG emission reductions that could be achieved through it. Now, this essentially represents what we found in terms of what is already being done in the countries, and this basically belongs to the first block of measures which I showed, which countries are taking. Now, the good news is that a lot of countries are actually implementing a lot of measures. The not so good news is that there are still a lot more countries which could take up a lot more actions that would help achieve the goals and reduce the impacts that we face. The green here is where the measures or policies are in place. The red is where countries don't have any incentive. And unfortunately, I'll connect that to, and a lot of countries, we just don't have the data to understand what's happening in those countries. Then again, you see an orange part, and the orange part is where that's again another challenge which countries face, is where countries do have incentives or policies in place, but they are not effectively enforced. So as a result, those are not very effective, though on the paper it might look that we are taking a lot of efforts. So the main point being that a lot has started to happen, but a lot more needs to be done in this area if we want to reduce these impacts. Now, moving on to what the study also did was it looked at the analysis to see that how these measures, and this is the measures which I talked about, which address both GHG emissions and address air pollution. And it carried out an analysis based on modeling work. This is basically for the global, for the Asia Pacific level, so it's not ASEAN as such. But what you can see is that if those last box of measures across major source of GHG emissions and air pollution, if implemented, could actually lead to a very significant reduction in air pollution. This will provide clean air to about 1 billion people. It will reduce the exposure, it will reduce the exposure by 80% of the population to below the highest level of WHO interim target levels. It would also avoid several 100,000 premature deaths from PM 2.5 pollution, and about 2 million deaths from indoor air pollution. So these measures have a very significant benefit immediately in terms of addressing the lost economic output and the health benefits one could accrue as a result of that. But that's not the only story. If we implement these measures, the estimate that we found in the study was that these measures, if implemented, could also help reduce the increase in temperature by 0.3 degrees by 2040 to 2030. So it's a significant contribution. So these measures are only slotted till 2030. So these are not like over a long-term period, but the impact is measured in the time frame of 2040, 2050. And if we look at the business as usual, and which includes the NDCs which were submitted at that point in time, so this doesn't include the updated NDCs, the temperature by 2040 would have gone up by 0.6 degrees above 2015. So there is a very significant contribution that can be achieved just by applying these measures, which primarily are focused on air pollution, but at the same time help us achieve the significant GHG emission reductions. Now, one of the things, as I said, what we want to do at UNEP and what we found was the data is a big challenge, and especially the visualization of the fact. In the sense, what we see is that air pollution is a silent impactor. In this, you don't realize it immediately. It happens over a period of time, so it's not kind of it's not like COVID that you immediately start seeing impact, so you start taking measures, unfortunately or fortunately, because that's also not a good situation to be in with the impacts like COVID. But the lack of data makes it very difficult for people to understand why these important measures are important, and provide the governments with that kind of a political backing, and for the population and stakeholders to demand for stringent actions. So UNEP has started a partnership with IQ Air and UN Habitat to create this platform. You see the picture on the left, which actually maps out what is the real-time air pollution exposure level. It's backed by a calculator, so you can see in real time how much population is impacted. And right now, with US EPA, we are working to develop an open source data management system, which would bring in this to the public, as well as we will be looking at the possibility where all the other, so there is an open source code and partners can actually participate in providing. So Government of Japan actually is also one of the contributors. So let me highlight that in this work. Now, not to spend too much of time, we basically put together the NDC targets of the ASEAN countries. I will not go into those, but I mean, most of you must be very familiar. Now, we already saw that we have quite a few big emitters. Yes, it is not among the top 20, there is only Indonesia, but still there are significant emitters. But more importantly, this is the region which is the fastest, economically fastest growing region. And it still is very fossil fuel intensive growth. So as a result, one is likely to see that if measures are not taken, the GHG emissions will continue to increase. Now, it was quite interesting. Not all the NDCs have been analyzed, but there is a organization called Climate Change Tracker. They analyze in country NDCs based on principle of equity and responsibility. I would not go into the details, but they do look at per capita income, stage of development, historical emissions. They take into account that. And what they do is they say that if the same level of effort is taken up by all the other countries as is submitted by our country, then what would be the temperature increase globally? Sorry to be the harbinger of bad news, but the NDCs which have come out of ASEAN, even with the updates, in many of these countries, the NDCs, if the same level of effort is put by all the countries, would lead to about 4 degrees centigrade. But more importantly, what the analysis also shows that in a large share of these countries, actually the current policies and measures which countries have, and are, if implemented effectively, could actually lead to emission reductions much more than what countries have put in their NDCs. To me, the way I would read that is there is a lack of confidence, I guess, in the countries. This is the first NDC. This is the first time countries are actually putting forward their commitment. So there seems to be an effort which needs to be taken to build that confidence so that countries can actually start looking at more ambitious actions. Just one point. And as I said, some of the air pollution measures that we talked about, either in the energy sector or in the transport sector, would actually both address the GHG emission, air pollution, and as well as increase the NDC ambitions. I'm going to transgress a bit, but I think it's important to talk about, Tom has already talked about it, is about coal phase out, and more largely also fossil fuel phase out. UNSG Secretary General has said that we need to stop any new capacities being added on coal, which should have started in early 2021 itself. And though not all the countries, but quite a few of the planned capacities would come up in ASEAN. What we have done is we carried out some analysis with climate analytics, and this basically shows the emissions which are there from the existing operating plants, the ones under construction, and the ones which are announced. So you can see that if only those which are announced and under construction continue, there'll be a significant amount of emission reductions happening from these plants. And this needs to be addressed if we have to stay anywhere close to achieving 1.5 degrees. The good news, though, is that as you must have seen in the news, that a lot of countries have actually started thinking whether they would like to go into coal, because it's something which possibly is not the best option from not only air pollution perspective, but also from climate change perspective. Just quickly wanted to make one point, is that actually it is not, I think Tom mentioned to it, it used to be an environmental issue to phase out coal or other fossil fuel. But today, actually, the imperative is also economic. If you look at the economics of power generation, in many countries, renewable energy power generation is cheaper than the new coal power plants. Very soon, actually, the new renewable energy plants would be cheaper even than existing plants, which possibly have already repaid back their capital cost and still would end up being costlier. So as a result, there's a very strong economic reason why countries should be rethinking constructing new coal power plants. And the other, one of the key challenges in this areas also used to be this, the intermittency of renewable energy. With the speed at which the battery power and storage technologies are developing, and the IT technologies for managing the grid with intermittent renewables, it actually becomes much more possible to start looking at the future of a much higher share of renewable energy in the grid. I think I'll conclude on that. So as I mentioned, what we see is air pollution addressing air pollution helps address GHG emissions. So there's a very strong overlap. Often in our countries, I also come from a developing countries, the thinking of climate change is that it's two things. It's a issue created by developed countries, and it's an issue which will have its impact in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. But addressing that has a very immediate benefit, and which is in terms of the negative impacts of air pollution. So NDCs not only will start showing gains in 10 years or 20 years, implementing strong NDCs would actually start showing much stronger benefits in terms of in terms of health benefits. Coming to the point, what we find is that data collection and analysis is one of the key challenges that we see for most of the developing countries, and that kind of makes it difficult. And I connect that with the hesitancy in developing countries of putting very ambitious NDCs, because they're not able to see, how the impact of the policies they are implementing is actually helping them reduce GHG emissions. And that is some place where UNEP is working very strongly on digitalization, because it makes it possible to have real-time data, real-time feedback on policies being implemented by the governments, and to then adjust your policies to where you see that positive outcomes are coming to strengthen them further. And the last important point, I know this is not connected with what my topic is, but it is connected to air pollution because it is a very significant contributor to air pollution. Coal is a losing bet, not only in terms of environment, but in terms of economics. Investing in coal is going to end up resulting in economic losses to the countries through stranded assets. And if we add all the health benefits on top of it, it just doesn't provide any socio-economic environmental rationale to go into coal. With that, I'll stop there. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suthi Sharma, for his very insight and informative presentation about how air pollution and climate change is interconnected and how we can win the or go towards mitigation of climate change along with the air pollution one. Probably, of course, we are much more interested and directly conscious of air pollution. Climate change is also something that people are more and more conscious. I am looking at the possible questions, and I think that we would reserve this for the end at the panel discussion. So please let me thank you again, Dr. Sharma, and we will see you at the panel just after the next talk. Please let me introduce our next speaker, which is who will be our last speaker for the session before the panel discussion. Our next speaker is Kun Nantawat Siwarat Tatskun, who is currently the acting vice president of Toyota Motor Thailand Company Limited. He is graduated in political science from Thammasat University. Since he started at Toyota Motor Thailand, he has been involved in human resource planning and administration, then corporation planning. Currently, he is also in charge of the External Affairs Department and is the co-leader of the XEV strategy rollout at Toyota Motor Thailand. Today, he will give us a talk on Toyota's life cycle approach for carbon neutral commitment. Please welcome Kun Nantawat.
ครับ โอเค สวัสดีครับ สวัสดีครับ Good afternoon everyone. So please allow me to share my screen just a moment please. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay. Can I continue? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you everyone. So it's my great honor to be here. So today my presentation will cover the policy and the implementation of the Toyota toward the carbon neutrality. The first, this is the fundamental mindset of Toyota people that we need to aim 100% commit to achieve the carbon neutral around the world. This is a basic policy of the environmental issue for all Toyota members. To do so, we have to exercise in 3 main areas to achieve. Basically, we need to reduce our life cycle net zero CO2 by 2050. 3 things that we have to focus. The first is we need to make a practical and sustainable full XEV lineup because we are car manufacturer. So the main product is vehicle. So we need to produce an environmental friendly vehicle, start from hybrid until the FCEV. The next one, go back to our internal side. we need to have the factory carbon neutral by 2035. So you can see that we need to implement ourselves as the best first. So 15 years earlier than the major plan, our factory should be go green first. And the last one, we need to fully support all stakeholders for clean energy society, even government or any private sector. We dedicate ourselves on this. And look back to our Toyota environment history. You can see that on the below one. Very long time ago in 1974, you can see that we set up the environmental committee at first. And along the way, design of our vehicle technology improvement, we are also consider which is the best solution on the related process, such as the recycle and some kind of new battery technology to make the dream come true for carbon neutral in 2050s. And maybe everyone didn't know that Toyota used to produce the BEV, the first model for RAV4 in very long time ago. But at that time, it's a limitation of the cost and the usage character. So we developed the Prius that more commercialized in practical way until the now. And Toyota is the only brand that now produce the new technology FCEV hydrogen, and we plan to make it popularization in the whole image of ZEV in the long run. This is our business milestone. And to implement the Toyota Environmental Challenge 2050 become true, so we set up, we call 6 challenge in each element focused composed of the vehicle itself, as I said. The next is the life cycle zero CO2 emission and our plant zero CO2, and included with the water usage, recycling, and harmonized with the community. This is our 6 main point. But this policy need to exercise systematically. So then Toyota get along with the government direction. So we set up the long-term goal. This is our dream. But along the way, we make the sub-policy plan with fixed timing and also KPI here. Sorry that I cannot disclose today. But the basic thinking way is in each element, we should set up what kind of the factor that we need to focus and set up the key KPI and target. Such as for the factory side, what kind of the activity or the renewable energy that we need to replace. So we need to set up year on year until achieve until 2050. This step-by-step plan will make the dream come true with the PDCA cycle. And this is some example that what we have done. Such as for the hybrid, we sell as a first electrified vehicle in Thailand that contribute a lot for CO2 reduction. And we also invite our supply chain, such as logistic company, to make the route optimization to reduce the number of round trip that will produce the CO2. And for also dealer as well, for internal, we call them green showroom to utilize the RE instead of the grids. And internal plan, I will explain later on. There are so many activities such as we utilize for the production process, we call karakuri, means use the energy from the gravity instead of electricity. And the last one, when the vehicle is going to the old age, we plan to do the scrap process. And for the battery that will become the mass scale in the future, we need to manage them by recycling that we call 3R business. And this not only Toyota in Thailand, but it is a policy all along the Toyota in the world. And you can see that each country have their own characteristics based on their local customization. Such as for India, they focus on the zero intake waters. And for Thailand, because we first introduced a hybrid, now we focus on the 3R battery and the solar cell equipped in the plant. This is an example. Not only for ourselves, we try to make the local partnership with our key organizations to promote the people mindset toward carbon neutrality, such as the plantation activity, man group, or anything that be the each unique characteristics of each country. So Toyota will take involved on that. And as I said that before we go to carbon neutral, Toyota factory itself should be the first role model first. So we step up our plan to 2035. We should reduce the CO2 emission by main two. The first is the reduction reduction to the technological or any production process that we call internal Kaizen. And the next, we will use the technology such as renewable energy, solar loop, or hydrogen to use instead of the electricity. That two men to will reduce the CO2 accordingly to achieve in 2035. This is some example for the water usage. In our factory, from 100% that pass the production process, we manage like this. 60% we purify them to recycle and return to the production process again. And 10% we purify and use it for the gardening and the toilet flushing. And another remaining, we release that along with the local government restriction. But anyway, to ensure that we will push the negative impact to the society, we go outside the plant to check the nearby society, such as the Bang Bagong River, to check that the water condition is still be good. There is no effect from the factory. That is a 6 challenge, but for easier understand, I will call that this one is a life cycle activity along the way until start from the vehicle, from the planning process, usage until the end. What kind of activity that Toyota done? Today, I will pick up only 6 key activities that Toyota going to do now. For the vehicle itself, I will separate talk about the well-to-wheel and tank-to-wheel that relate to the energy aspects. The first for electrified lineup, as I said, that hybrid is the first technology that also still equipped with the engine. And now we step up the technology to be the plug-in hybrid. Still be the engine and the battery, but can plug into the grid system. And the next is the BEV that we remove the engine at all. And the last one is very high technology for FCEV that we equip the FCEV stack to be the main generators. That is an on-hand technology now. So Toyota now on preparing the we call the wide range of electrification lineup based on the driving characters and vehicle size, such as for the electricity. Now there are some limitation of driving lanes, so the limitation should be last mile transportation at first. And now the main uses of Thai people is the mid lane, such as the passenger car. Now we start hybrid PHEV and now are on paving a way to be BEV and ZEV when the all related factor is ready. And in the long run, it's our dream that FCEV will be popular to be used for the long distance and heavy workload, such as truck and the bus. I think someday this vehicle and heavy may become happen, and this one pure green for the carbon neutrality aspect. To do so, Toyota need to set up our own vehicle plan in terms of volume to replace the existing one. You can see that the current one, this is the electrified vehicle, is small portion, but time by time it will increase based on the technology availability, cost-wise, and the market acceptance. So in the next decade, we hope that around 50% of Toyota vehicle should be electrified for our global customer. To do so, we have the R&D and plan to deliver the vehicle around 70 model within 25 is electrified, and inside of that 15 is BEV for customer choice. I think that would be the perfect combination of the energy and the vehicle technology that can be the main uses of the customer in every country. And the next one, please allow me to touch upon the tank-to-wheel energy focus. The first pitch, I would like to show this one. If you see in roughly, you can see that surely the conventional or its mean ICE engine is the main emitter that produce around 100%. This is a pallet. And hybrid, when we equip with the biofuel, the CO2 will decline accordingly. And no doubt that BEV will be zero because there's no engine at all. This one correct, but in terms of only tank-to-wheel aspects. But we consider in the whole image behind the scene before the vehicle can run. We have another process that we call well to tank. It means the energy generator. You can see that on the pink one. Okay, ICE is also need to have some gasoline production process here. And for the hybrid as well, have some additional portion for the energy production process. But for the hybrid, we can equip some like sugarcane biofuel or something or ethanol to subsidiary from the main fossil energy. And BEV also, even there are zero emission from the tailpipe, but along the way for the electricity, for the power plant and CNG production, still be need some pink area, this one that relate to the CO2 emission. So the best way is, okay, as everyone said that this is a global trend that we will come, but to go perfectly, the clean electricity is the key to make this vehicle go green purely, start from well to wheel. And Toyota recognize this one now. We are set up some sandbox project. We call the carbon neutral smart park project. It's kind of the carbon neutral community. Because in Thailand, our character is the agriculture country. So we have some palm oils or solar farm or even the hydrogen from Potato. This is a pure RE. So we need to input that energy into our community with some technology. And then in the uses of vehicle, we will equip with high technology, pure electrified such as BEV and hydrogen to be the good sandbox to get along with the government direction. And if this project success, we plan to expand to another Thailand smart city accordingly. So this is a full from well to wheel. This is our dream. And the next one, let I touch upon the energy just in time. Shortly explain, it means that we need to make balance from the demand and supply side to avoid the excess energy that we produce, but we don't use it at all. This is a basic concept. And the next one, not directly to the vehicle, but we call that because of the trend of the digitalization and the big data management, we set up the project we call Llama for Load to reduce the traffic congestion and make the route suggestion for the driver to make the best plan for the shorten the time and avoid some CO2 that waste from you stuck in some intersection with our vehicle move. The basic concept is we set up the data input from several sources and we make some algorithm analysis to make the good guidance for the passenger, for the driver to select the best way for them. The concept is we need to make your happy journeys in the Bangkok and the urban city. This will be the perfect navigator and partner of the journey to suggest you which is the best way for your happy journey. This project we work with Toyota Mobility Foundations. And the last one, get into when vehicle use around 10 or 20 years, we need to manage them properly. Now we do two things. The first one we call scrap or dismantle process. Now under the collaboration with WMS and DOWA Japan, we set up, we call the dismantle factory. So the old vehicle will go get into our process and some material that still can be used, we will separate them. But the main material is came from the body that composed of steel and aluminum. We scrap it and return it to aluminum factory, melt it and reprocess to be the steel sheet into our production process. And the next one, this is very significant trend in the future. The battery will become much more high claim volume based on the popularity of the XEV and ZEV. Now we do 3R activity. The basic concept is when battery is run down, this not mean run down at all because we have sub module that some module can be used, some module still cannot be used. So we clarify them into 3 grades, A, B, and C. For the A grade, this is very good efficiency. We reassemble it to be new battery pack and sell in the cheaper price with the acceptable performance to the after-sale market. For the reuse, it's lower grade than A, but it's still usable. So we set up to be the energy storage for the factory use. But in the last one for C grade, it cannot use us all as the energy storage. So we go to the burn process. And at the end, we can take the precious material that can go to the refinery process again. It's very good rather than finding the natural resource to be the mining process. Use the existing one first that can offset the new natural resource usage. In that aim, Toyota going to get along with the SDG target of the UN in many aspects, such as for the good health, for the good air clean with the carbon neutrality, clean energy with the effective water usage. Many things we are getting along with the global direction at this moment. So I have 3 key summary that we need to talk today. The first one, to go green together, Toyota cannot do by ourselves, but we need government support in terms of the policy to go decarbonization with many multi-pathway to go on that, not only the tailpipe of the vehicle. The next one is until the starting point until the life cycle, every process should be considered as a carbon neutral tool to manage them. And the last one, now Toyota is welcome to work with another stakeholder who have the same goal of carbon neutral to go together. That should be all for my presentation. Last word is working together. We are in the same world. Please take responsibility on your hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kun Nantawat, for this very exciting action from Toyota in contributing to the carbon neutrality. And with your plan, we can see that it certainly will go even faster than the plan announced by our Prime Minister. We are very pleased that Toyota fixed it first in 2035. We are now going to start our panel discussion, and we'll get also question and answers to questions from the floor. On behalf of the co-chair of this session, we would like to thank all the presenters again for the great presentations. And from now, we would like to move on to the general Q&A. This is done in the panel discussion form. During the presentations, we have prepared some questions for all speakers based on the content of their talks and questions we got from the participants. As time is quite limited, we would like to apologize if we could not cover all the questions from the floor. Now I would like to pass the question asking to my colleague and co-chair, Toru Terai-san.
Thank you, Savitori-sensei. And again, I would like to thank all the presenters for great, very informative and very positive presentations. Before going further, I'd like to pick up one very small question about presentation materials, which presenters used in their presentations. I got the question that if they will be distributed to all people. I checked it with the Secretariat, and I would like to tell you that the presentations will be put on the website of this forum after the presentations, and there might be some correction collection, like putting some more information, like their contact information or something like that. So you don't have to worry about noting all the elements. So you can read it later. Having said that, I'd like to pick up one question. First of all, I'd like to ask a question to Tom. It's a question about zero emission vehicle. As EU and UK have announced their target on their emission vehicle by 2035, how do you see the trend in ASEAN region? Tom, can you tell me the answer for that question?
Yeah, thank you. I think the answer to that is the trend is slow, but it is moving. So I would say we shouldn't expect to see a major focus at COP26 from ASEAN countries on zero emission transport. I think in the region, I would single out Singapore as being a leader, and it said it will it will introduce only sales of hybrids and electric vehicles from 2030, with the aim of having 100% of all cars on the road either hybrid or electric by 2040. Brunei has a policy of 60% of all cars on the road electric by 2035, which is quite ambitious, I think, for Brunei. And then here in Thailand, they have a pretty ambitious policy. I mean, they've targeted 50% of new car sales being electric by 2030 and 100% by 2035. And that's really important in this region because Thailand is a major exporter to the region too. So about half of the cars that are produced in Thailand are exported around ASEAN. So I would say the trend is moving, and it's great to see the presentation by Kun Nuntawat earlier, because I think that illustrates the role of major producers who are based in Thailand supporting that trend. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I also hope that comes true, and I think that that will solve the air pollution problem as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. Okay, thank you. So I'd like to go to the next question to Ms. Yui. What are the differences between the roles of country and the roles of megacities, such as Bangkok, Thailand and Bangkok? How can they cooperate each other and efficiently to take more ambitious actions against climate change?
Yeah, thank you for the question. In my opinion, I think there will be differences in the role of national government and the local government. So the mission of the national government is to plan and manage the overall policies covering the whole countries and national strategy on particular topics such as energy. And the national level mitigation plan is also an example. So meanwhile, the local government play important roles to protect and secure its own citizens' lives and economies. That's their main mission. So for example, local government concerns well on disaster management that is actually relevant to climate change adaptation sector. And local government has done this even before the climate change became an issue. However, local government should also play an important role to show the direction to the city's stakeholder to take action together with them toward the sustainable development. Also for like a mitigation domain, also like for a company using the fossil fuel is no longer regarded as a sustainable businesses, as Dr. Sudhil mentioned. And so the local government could share the city's future on long-term perspective with them to let them shift to the sustainable business. So the shift and the recreation of the society as a whole will lead to increase the value of the city and attract more people and the business or companies to living. So yes, I hope that answered the question.
Thank you very much. So next question is to Michael, but would you go ahead, Sabitori Sensei, or can I continue? If you would like to keep one
I
question.
think please continue as you feel comfortable with. No problem.
Okay. So I will pick one question. What are the strong points of the joint crediting mechanism, JCM? How is Japan going to increase the number of JCM projects in ASEAN and ASEAN region and the Asia Pacific region? I'm glad if you could answer this question, Ms. Michael. Ms. Uga-san.
Thank you for your question. So we started this joint crediting mechanism in 2013. We're thinking about how to implement this kind of carbon credit cooperation under the Paris Agreement with partner countries. So we are thinking or implementing this program for like almost like 8 years, and and it's not like a desktop study or research. We are actually learning by doing, signing the bilateral document between governments and setting up a joint governance body, and also established the registry to track the credit issuance. So we are already kind of invested a lot in to create this infrastructure. So that's, I think, a strong point. And also, although those who are familiar with the carbon markets and the Clean Development Mechanism or CDM, we learned from this experience under the Kyoto era. So, maybe some projects, they don't need any governmental financial support, but maybe they still see some difficulties. Maybe it's just financial or technical. So I think with the JCM, you can also access the government financial support for actual projects, and also with this support, you can try a new technology with various support from the government, and also some capacity building through the Japanese companies, and creating a new business cooperation with this under this cooperation. So there is a lot of possibility and a strong points, but I would like to share those points. And so for the second question about how to increase the project numbers and maybe scaling up the project size. So for now, projects are supported mainly by the government budget, but because Japan raised 2030 emission reduction target to 46%, and before this change, it was 26%. This is a huge change, and probably it's a shock for the public and for sure for the business in Japan. So, and we have already seen some enthusiasm and in Japanese private sector and how they can achieve or contribute to this national target. So I see some companies are more interested in carbon markets and credit. So hope this latest trend in Japan will spill over to the JCM, and more projects are developed under with this mechanism. And in addition, we also trying to make more transparent about how the private sector can develop a project without government support. Well, it's possible with this current rule, but maybe some companies, it's not really clear. But the government, we are now trying to clarify maybe some of the issues. Maybe we get a lot of questions. So hopefully those process will contribute to the more project coming into pipeline. And I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you mentioned it's a great jump, great progress from 26 to 46, and from the people in the environmental side, maybe enthusiastic, and on the other hand, other people might be shocked a little bit, but I hope we can do that. And you know, as Tom introduced in his presentations, Article 6 discussion will be held in the next COP, and many people might be interested in that because so that we can continue, you can continue the JCM project. Okay.
I'd like to add one point. So yeah, probably many of you know about the negotiation of Article 6 is still going on, and maybe some points are not clarified yet in the Paris rulebook. But well, that negotiation will not stop the JCM, and but yeah, we are sure to contribute to the success of the COP26. But our cooperation will get stronger and stronger. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Kun Sabitori Sensei, would you like to continue?
Yes, please. I will be pleased to discuss with our speaker, Dr. Suti Sharma, because as I mentioned to you earlier, my background is about pollution and chemistry and climate change. And to Dr. Suti, I would like to ask you, what are the co-benefits between air pollution and climate change actions that you think that would be really effective to be deployed in ASEAN, where the problem of air pollution due to haze, for example, as shown from PM2.5, is more and more increasing? And what supports are available for this deployment?
Thank you, Dr. Savitri. So in terms of, as I mentioned in my presentation, if you look at the measures, and maybe I can go in a bit of detail there, they run across the whole sector. Essentially, it is related with energy, whether it is in transport industry or the energy conversion. And you might know more because I'm not primarily an air pollution expert, but the major load that comes for PM 2.5 is from the transport sector, it's from the energy burning, and it's also the solid waste burning. And if you're moving out of urban areas, then the crop burning or the forest burning adds to it. I would not step into the transboundary issues. They are too complicated to address, and that requires a different level of scale of cooperation. But even at the level of countries itself, as I said, we had done this study where we came out with a set of measures where there could be a strong co-benefits of reducing PM 2.5 as well as reducing GHG emissions. And for us, the transport sector in urban areas is an important point of entry. electric vehicles, and thanks for that wonderful and very encouraging presentation from my friend from Toyota. It's really heartening to see that change is happening and maybe getting a faster momentum. We see electric vehicles as of now, and a combination of zero fuel vehicles going forward as a key measure that can be addressed. Now, in terms of the electric vehicle, UNEP and JEF, along with ADB, UNDP, and other number of other agencies, we have a global electric vehicle program, which has two components. One is the global component, which looks at the policies, the financial models, the business models, issues related to battery, issues related to capacity, etc. So that we will be working on and then sharing those with the countries. Plus, we have about 27 countries which are partners with us. 9 of those 27 countries are in Asia, and 4 of them in ASEAN itself. So that's a very significant, large global program that UNEP is running, and this would be run over the next 4 years. So we see that program as a kind of an important support structure, not only to the countries that we are directly working with, but one of the things that we are doing is we are working with ADB. And the idea is to then use the ADB's channels to get investments flowing into the countries. And the policy, the business models, the financing tools, etc., is where the project comes in. So that's a major area we're working on. But as I say, in the transport sector, electric vehicle or zero fuel vehicle is a good policy, but it does not address the issue of congestion. So for us also, another important part is actually increasing the use of public transport, increasing the use of non-motorized transport, because it has an indirect effect also on all the energy which goes into production of vehicles and other aspects, can also lead to PM 2.5 increase. So we see that as a complementary measure. So one cannot purely focus on zero emission vehicles or electric vehicles, but strengthening the non-motorized transport infrastructure, biking infrastructure, cycling, walking infrastructure, and increasing the use of public transport. And that becomes very much important for big cities and the cities which are kind of growing very fast. So that's one area. The second where we see which can have a very direct impact is energy efficiency. And when we talk about energy efficiency, because it reduces the total amount of fuel that we need in any place to burn. And we're talking about energy efficiency in appliances. We're talking about energy efficiency in industry. We are talking about energy efficiency. Of course, UNEP had a big program on fuel energy standards, for fuel emission standards and efficiency standards, for transport sector. Because if you look at it in terms of actually, the IEA report was very articulate in that, saying that 40% of the emission reductions required to stick to, within the range of getting to 1.5, within 2020 to 2030 actually could come from energy efficiency. And the best part of it is that actually it is a cost-saving measure for countries, because you save the cost for consumers, you save the cost for creating energy infrastructure as well. And you save the cost in terms of developing more coal mines or developing more oil fields and the related environmental negative impacts. So for us, energy efficiency, though it doesn't kind of very directly give an impression how it reduces air pollution, but it has a very strong impact on reducing air pollution. So that's, again, the area where we see. The second is, I think this was touched upon from my colleague who talked about the Thailand policy. In the urban areas, as we see the possibility of decentralized renewable energy and creating different market structure. I know we are all stuck in this, market structure which are given by producer-oriented electricity supply, but not towards pro-consumers, which are producers and consumers. And the solar prices have gone down so significantly, and the technologies which are coming in, smart meter technologies and other technologies to manage the grid, actually provide a significant opportunity to move away from using any kind of fossil fuel to more and more renewable energy. And I think we see that as a big advantage. I'll connect this also in terms of, you said, what kind of a support. I think in terms of, there are a number of agencies which are working on, and in most of these areas, for example, energy efficiency in industries or appliances, the regulations, the policies, they are existing, they are applied. So there's nothing new there actually, and countries have done it. But there is a significant amount of support. But one of the policy instruments that we see is very useful is what my colleague just now spoke before me, is the carbon markets. I think time has come to actually start moving towards putting a price on carbon. And that has a very significant co-benefit on air pollution immediately. And also, I think that was Toru-san's question, that how can we increase the participation? What we are doing is UNEP is working in ASEAN countries to help countries understand how to implement national carbon markets. Because ultimately, it is not the governments who are going to reduce emissions. Governments are going to pause policies, facilitate the actions. It is going to be the private sector which will have to make the investment in actions which reduce emissions. And I think using the carbon pricing tool provides with the flexibility that private sector needs, because it doesn't kind of put a hard constraint that you cannot emit so much, beyond so much. It gives you the flexibility, and it gives the opportunity for those entrepreneurs who are more enterprising, who have opportunity to reduce much more than what is required of them, to actually speed up the transformation in some of the sectors. So I in fact would say, I know it doesn't look like connected with air pollution, but the analysis that we have seen, that once you start implementing carbon pricing, the air pollution actually starts getting positively impacted by reducing that. So I would say that in terms of the government level support to the industry could come from this kind of a policy, which also reduces the burden, because one of the key challenges developing countries have is how do you keep allocating additional resources to addressing these issues when there are other priority matters also to be addressed. So I would say that that's an important area, and a number of entities are involved in it. Government of Japan is also carrying out some of the support work. We're working with IJS as well on that work. So that's something which I wanted to highlight in this context as well. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suthi, and we will certainly come back to you later on. My next question, I would like to turn to the private sector, because as Dr. Suthi said, of course, the effort should come from the government, but also the private sector has a very important role. So, Kunantawat, what do you think? What can we expect? The business circumstances will be in the future under carbon neutrality, and how will Toyota react, or what kind of actions will Toyota undertake?
Thank you for your questions. And luckily today we have the Ishimoto-san, he is our regional executive vice president who take care of this one directly. So Ishimoto-san, please support for this question, please. Ishimoto-san,
Hi.
Yeah?
Hi,
Okay.
hi.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Savitori Sensei, Ajan. Thank you very much for your question.
Good afternoon.
Yes, he already explained. First of all, we guaranteed already to achieve our car CO2 net zero earlier than Thailand. Probably target year 2065. And also we already announced to achieve zero emission from the factory by 2035. So by disseminating two kind of approach, definitely we would like to contribute to Thai society. However, as he explained earlier, in order to realize carbon neutral transportation or factory, how do I say? It's difficult to achieve zero CO2 emission without clean energy. But on the other hand, looking in renewable energy in Thailand, generation amount could be increasing and expanding year by year toward 2035. But however, realistically, it would be a bit difficult, quite difficult to manage unstable energy like a solar, wind power in general. So that we need baseload electricity in large scale or large portion of the all demand of country. There could be innovative technology need to be transferred into Thailand, like a carbon capture storage or carbon recycling technology or others. So that honestly, Toyota don't have such kind of certain technology yet, but our headquarters in Japan already started carbon recycling development. And also, fortunately, Toyota is operating business globally. We have a lot of the partners, companies global wide. Also, our mission is always to contribute society by carrying out a solution of society issues, so that we would like to make effort with such kind of related stakeholders to anyway achieve earlier carbon neutral than that country's announcement year. Hi, is it matched with a question from yourself?
Yes, actually, thank you very much, Ishimoto-san, for this informative reply, and thank also to Toyota for really helping and supporting Thailand in the target, in our target for the carbon neutrality. Is there any actually recommendations or suggestions that you would like to formulate for not only for the Thai government, as Kunantawat has already mentioned, but also to other business, I mean, automotive business, other than I mean, Toyota, and how we can take the role model?
Yes, Mr. Nuntawat already explained today. For example, we are now doing the feasibility study in each area under the both government support, but we are really appreciated the endorsement from the government anyway. So we prepared all type of the model, XEV, not only BEV, but FCEV also very important. Also, transition period, we believe that infrastructure of the station, a charging station would be not insufficient, would be insufficient. So that we also recommend a prepared hybrid model. Anyway, in order to introduce such kind of a zero emission vehicle, probably we need a government support strongly. Like, for example, JCM is one of our expectations for the infrastructure. And also, taxation or incentive for the user is also very appreciated for the first beginning stage, I think. Also, energy side, but still renewable energy system or infrastructure are not great in ASEAN countries in general. So we also make effort together with all stakeholders, like semi-government sector like PTT and also IAT or PVA members too. But regulatory study also is required, I think, for future free trading of renewable energy. Otherwise, tank to foil, not only the tank to foil, but well to tank CO2 will be not reduced free enough. That is my request at the moment.
Thank you very much, Yamamoto, for this insight. And before we go for the closing, we still have some time for the last question. I think our my co-chair was planning to ask the question to Tom Moody.
Yes.
Yes, because this is really very important. The world after, the post-COVID, how would be for the environment and in our section. Please, Toru-san.
Yes. Thank you, Savitori-sensei. I would like to exercise right as a chairperson. So I'd like to ask this question very, I hope strongly. My question to Tom is, how has COVID-19 affected the global momentum of climate change? I think everyone would like to know, because the next COP is right after the pandemic, and we'd like to know what's going on from the viewpoint of COVID-19. So Tom, if you could answer the question, I'm glad.
Yes, thank you for the question. I think initially, because we had to postpone COP, there was some concern that we were going to cause some problems. But actually, I think our view in the presidency is that the pandemic has overall, it's accelerated the world's sort of desire to transition to a net zero future. And it's put the benefits of that in even starker relief. And I think there's sort of three areas which I'll very quickly just illustrate, I think. So first is energy demand. And as you know, the global slowdown at the start of the pandemic allowed us to see very clearly for ourselves the benefits of reducing air pollution and reducing excess usage of carbon intensive energy. There's loads of examples around this region, but also in Europe and other parts of the world of that for the public. And then I think that led to the second trend, which is that it really affected public perceptions. So both because of the positive factors that I've just mentioned, but also because in the opposite direction, people have connected or seen the pandemic and climate change in the same way. So they're two globalized risks, which we're all very connected on. So interestingly, the Yusuf Isias Foundation here in ASEAN did a perception survey of ASEAN members of the public at the height of the pandemic in December 2020. And even then, 60% of members of the public thought that there should be an equal response by their governments towards the pandemic and climate change. So it just goes to shows you how much the public thought this was a priority. And then the final issue, I think, is the economics, which I touched on in my slides. And that hasn't been caused by the pandemic. It's been going on over the last 10 years, but it's really been accelerating and it's become more visible in the last 2 years. So it's reached this perfect point at just the right time of being more cost effective and more beneficial than fossil fuels in terms of job creation and growth. And why it's just at the right time is because we're coming out of COVID in key economies and we're starting to think about those stimulus decisions. So policymakers have the strategic space because of the energy slowdown and the opportunity economically and with public perceptions on their side to make that bold choice and move us into a greener future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to listen to your answer. I strongly hope that the next COP will be very successful for the people all over the world. Okay. Thank you, Substitute Sensei. I'm satisfied, so I'll over to you.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure to have all our speakers and also to work with Toru-san for this important seminar. And in this regard, we actually I was looking also outside because we are online, but outside it's I don't know if in your area it is, but in my area it is raining hard. So and I actually really happy not to be actually organize this on site, but online, so that we can still save. On behalf of the co-chair of this session, I would like to thank once again all our speakers and for their insight and informative presentation. We actually, thanks to all this presentation, we are able today to prepare for the next normal carbon neutral world, and especially in ASEAN, and the efforts from international organization as well as private sector. We hope that this conference has paved the path for all the participants to go towards the global net zero emissions by mid-century and keep a limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature increase pledged by the Paris Agreement. We hope to have other opportunities to meet with you again, participants and our distinguished speakers. Thank you very much for your proactive participation. We wish you all, Toru-san and myself, a nice evening and stay safe and healthy. Thank you very much. สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you very much to all the speakers and moderators for sharing knowledge and your expertise. And of course, also thank you to the audience for your participation. Before we end the session today, I would like to invite everyone to visit the virtual marketplace. This will be where our exhibitors, including some of the world's leading brands, showcase their latest technologies, innovations, solutions, and services in renewable energy, energy efficiency, environmental protection, electric vehicles, and smart pumps and valves. Only these 3 days, 14 to 16 of October, that you will be able to contact the exhibitor by using chat and call function that we provided, or even set the meeting with them. Thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you next year during 14 to 16 of September 2022 at the new venue, Queen Sirikit National Convention Center, Bangkok, Thailand. Please stay safe and healthy, everyone. Goodbye. ขอบคุณค่ะ
ปัจจุบันเนี่ยขนาดโรงงานที่เราทำเรียกว่า Pilot Plant เนี่ยมีกำลังผลิตประมาณ30เมกะวัตต์อาวแล้วก็สามารถสเกลอัพขึ้นไปถึงระดับ100เมกะวัตต์อาวนะครับ ความมั่นใจครับว่าถ้าตลาดมันพัฒนาขึ้นไปตามเทคโนโลยีที่มีเนี่ยเราจะสามารถเข้าถึงการผลิตไม่ว่าจะเป็น30เมกะวัตต์ในปัจจุบัน100เมกะวัตต์และรวมไปถึงกิกะวัตต์ที่เรากำลังจะมาถึงครับเราพร้อมแล้วที่จะนำ Product นี้ไปสู่มือของลูกค้าที่จะนำประยุกต์แบตเตอรี่ของเราไปใช้งานในโลกพลังงานแห่งอนาคตที่เราเชื่อมั่น
Installing and maintaining a PV system is generally a safe, secure process. But like the cars we drive, some PV systems have more safety features than others. To protect your technicians and installers, SolarEdge employs some of the world's strictest safety standards. Our integrated safe DC technology automatically de-energizes DC cables to a touch-safe 1 volt whenever the inverter is turned off. This complies with the strictest international standards protecting PV professionals, firefighters, and assets. Inverter-embedded arc detection, installed in hundreds of thousands of monitored systems all over the world, accurately identifies specified arcs and shuts down the inverter to prevent fires. Our optional auto reconnect feature allows for continued safe production until the issue is resolved. And safety meets convenience with our module-level monitoring and remote troubleshooting, which eliminate diagnostic work at dangerous heights. Best of all, SolarEdge safety is built into the system. No additional components or installation is required. Safe DC, arc prevention, module-level monitoring, and secure battery operation. That's how SolarEdge protects your team and your customers' investment.
We are seeing growing momentum around the world among governments, private business, and individuals towards carbon neutrality and net zero. We all want to leave a cleaner planet for our future generations, and hence we must act now. SCG is strongly committed towards sustainability. Our EV solution platform will drive and accelerate the speedier conversion towards smart and clean mobility.
EV Solution Platform is a one-stop service under the Smart Clean Mobility concept that allows partners to run their business worry-free at an affordable cost. The platform covers 3 areas: focusing on finished product with battery safety as the priority. Local production, for example, EV bus semi-knockdown unit assembly line and electric vehicle conversion are manufactured domestically. Maintenance and spare parts service. Charging station. Logistics operation service. And IT platform development for a seamless connection between service and solution, making users more convenient and confident when transitioning into electric vehicles. Customized business models from rental service, sales package, to logistics provider service for products or employees. with Vehicle Incident Insurance Type 1 and Battery Product Liability Insurance. Our one-stop service creates an EV ecosystem that offers worry-free solutions at an affordable cost for our partners. It is also environmentally friendly as electric vehicles emit less carbon dioxide and PM 2.5, resulting in a better quality of life.
I would like to invite all our partners and stakeholders to join us in this exciting journey. We're passionate towards delivering smart, clean mobility to our customers. We will do this, we will make this happen by engaging with all of you in a spirit of trust. And most importantly, we will grow together.
SCG International, trusted international business partner.
Electricity never ceases to flow. Electricity is everywhere. Providing reliable electrical energy for our country is the main mission of the Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand, or EGAT. No matter how high or how deep we have to go, EGAT will bring electricity for the sake of the country and the Thai people. Under the vision, Innovate Power Solutions for a Better Life, EGAT generates electricity with reasonable fuel management. This creates a balance between stability, price, and environmental care. Additionally, EGAT purchases electricity from independent power producers, small power producers, and from neighbouring countries. Electricity is transmitted via the EGAT power transmission grid that stretches across the country to electricity distributors to meet the demand of each sector. EGAT also sells electricity to neighbouring countries to create power system stability for the region. EGAT aims to increase the organization's capability through research and innovative development of electricity generation. To support future needs, electricity generation is conducted with a hybrid system. In addition, the Battery Energy Storage System, or BESS, that supports grid modernization also allows EGAT to access the international renewable energy market. The National Control Centre, or NCC, and the Renewable Energy Control Centre help manage renewable energy effectively. Security of the electricity system is prioritised for both the present and future needs of renewable energy, in accordance with the government's policy and power development plan. EGAT uses its organisational assets to conduct electrical industry businesses. and undertakes investments that help strengthen the power system. EGAT Innovation Holding Company Limited was established to efficiently conduct business relating to electrical innovation. EGAT helps create a high-quality society by sharing knowledge with the community. For a sustainable community. Walks side by side with the Thai people. And protects the environment with consciousness and technology. EGAT operates under good governance principles and core values. The night sky is charming, yet it emphasizes the importance of electricity. EGAT promises that Thailand's electricity system will always be secure, stable, and reliable. EGAT has driven itself into a century of innovation, generating sustainable and eco-friendly electricity. EGAT, power for Thai happiness.
Electricity does not only refer to light from a bulb, but it also implies to hope, happiness, and good quality of life, brightening up all hearts of customers. Therefore, the emerging of electricity generation in Thailand has evidently changed the people's lifestyles. In 1884 to 1960, initial stage of power supply in Thailand and PEA establishment. During the reign of King Chulalongkorn, King Rama V, electricity was introduced to Thailand in 1884 by Field Marshal Chao Phraya Surasak Montri Cherm Sang Chuto when holding the title of Chao Mun Waiwaranat. Provincial Electricity Affairs was inaugurated after the establishment of Electricity Section under Public Health Department, the Ministry of Interior. A power plant was later constructed in Nakhon Pathom municipality and started its operation in 1930, followed by the establishment of Provincial Electricity Organization. The power supply was expanded to provincial areas and it stimulated local development. More and more power plants were constructed in districts and provinces. Recognizing the necessity of electricity expansion and good governance, the government established Provincial Electricity Authority, PEA, on 28 September 1960. From 1960 to 1980, construction of power plants in provincial areas. At first, PEA's headquarters office was initially located on Rama 6 Road alongside Samsen Irrigation Canal and then moved to Ngam Wongwan Road in Bang Khen District, Phrat Nakhon Province. The inauguration was held on 28 September 1971. Regarding the infrastructure development in Thailand, PEA had developed electricity generation systems under the National Economic and Social Development Plan 1 and 2. The generation system was an uphill mission at that time. PEA encountered considerable difficulties, including the expenses of machine installation and operation, the electrical distribution to various locations, the procurement of electric generators, the mechanic recruitment for installation, as well as the transportation of machines, electricity utility poles and electrical wires to some rural areas at which physical labor and small vehicle were necessary. The rapid growth of electricity demand became the PEA's motivation in transmitting electricity to every household. In order to improve living conditions of people throughout the country, As a result, PEA formulated a master plan for power supply development in provincial areas. In responding to the increasing electricity demand, this has continuously encouraged development of electric power transmission to Thailand's remote areas. In 1981 to 1990, electricity system quality improvement to enhance business and industrial development. Power supply became the significant part of infrastructure and had an important role for the national progress in all aspects. Thus, PEA implemented the electrical distribution system to enhance the generating capability and to support electricity expansion. Diesel engine power plants were closed due to high cost but low efficiency. Electric current was instead transmitted from Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand, EGAT. As for the people living on the island, PEA laid down submarine cables for the first time in Thailand. From Khanom Electricity Substation to Koh Samui, people there had enough energy to use since then. Furthermore, PEA began energy collecting from renewable resources, including hydropower and solar energy, to generate and transmit electricity to remote locations. Some energy was sent to the PEA's commercial operation to strengthen the stability of power system. Additionally, PEA employed advanced technology and efficient machinery to improve the operational system in order to offer excellent service and satisfy all customers. In 1991 to 2000, application of high technology to reach international service standard. PEA applied high technology to raise the power transmission and distribution standards. In responding to the growing demand in businesses and industrial sectors, PEA improved power supply efficiency with a better distribution system of 115 kilovolt power station. Modern technology was employed to manage electricity distribution system. Supervisory control and data acquisition, SCADA, was adopted to automatically control electricity distribution. PEA was eventually able to carry out maintenance without power failure to increase efficiency of power distribution to industrial sector. In 2001 to 2010, organization development to international standard in energy business. The rapid progress of science and technology was the deciding factor to determine the direction of structure and mission development, as well as personnel potential development and the resource management for maximum efficiency. PEA built in every field of work in order to form learning society and foster persistent development of organization, getting ready for the international level with our modern technology for high efficiency of electric power distribution and our good service. The ISO 9002 guideline was also applied to the whole organization for quality assurance. In 2011 to 2020, a journey to digital utility. Regarding the concept of customer-centric services, PEA provides a positive customer experience with easy and quick service everywhere. The organization has changed some CSR business strategies to CSV, creating shared value and operating to satisfy stakeholders' demands in order to become a sustainable business. Aiming for an excellent organization in the electric power industry, PEA improves efficiency of every working system, fulfills expectations of customers, and manages the organization according to good governance principles. Move forward with human resource, digital technology, and innovation. Let's create shared value to society and environment with digital technology and go on a journey to digital utility. PEA.